Hi, my name is Mark Flynn. I'm the event lead for Relay for Life of Tacoma and Pat Flynn's son. I'm here speaking with my friend, Felicia Wilson. Felicia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with Relay for Life?
Sure, I'll be glad to. And of course, I'm your friend because I was your mom's friend first, and we had some amazing times with that wonderful, wonderful lady. When I first met Pat was either in Tampa or Orlando, Florida. We were doing a training, and Pat and Gordy had been doing all the trainings, and she always liked to talk about how she saw the schedule that these two people were teaching beginning Relay for Life. And they thought, what? So they went in to see what we were doing. And we had a little skit we were doing. It was, it's a wonderful day for a relay. Yes, a wonderful day for a relay. Won't you have one? And of course, we did the whole Mr. Rogers thing, and it was a lot of fun. But I got there by way of getting the Relay for Life in Gwinnett County started back in, I think it was 93. But I'd been a volunteer for many, many years before that with American Cancer Society, and we were floundering financially, and we weren't getting really good PR with our events because we were doing jail and bail. And then we heard about Relay, and I begged to be the chair. I said, let me do this, let me do this. And I had just gone back to college and finished a degree, so I was kind of ready to do something different. And we got it started, and it was an amazing event. I don't it always just thought it was always thrilling to me, and I was in awe of how this happened to the American Cancer Society through Pat and Gordy.
It's really fun for you to tell the story about the Mr. Rogers song because I've heard it 100 times from Pat, and it's fun to hear.
Really?
So we always talk about.
We took off our jackets and we put on sweaters and talked about all the changes with the American Cancer Society. It was fun.
So I'm going to give a brief history of where Relay started, and you can chime in anytime, Felicia. But as most of you know, in 1985, Dr. Klatt wanted to raise some money for the American Cancer Society, so he walked around UPS, University of Puget Sound track here in Tacoma, Washington for 24 hours. He made the news, he made 60 Minutes, he made everything. And he raised over $27,000 and walked over 80 miles. And believe it or not, Pat Flynn missed that event. She got there after the gates were locked, and she got to watch it through a locked gate. And so she was there the next day, and Dr. Klatt asked her if at some point if she would help make this into something big. So they formed a committee, and they moved the event to Stadium Bowl, and it grew and grew and grew. And my recollection was my brother and I were just support staff. We weren't even official. We just carried all the boxes and boxes of T-shirts and little ditty bags down to Stadium Bowl. And if you've ever seen a picture, it's quite a trek to get down to the bottom of that bowl. And then it just got enormous. I remember Pat traveling around the country, meeting Felicia and coming back and telling stories. And then we eventually formed a Flynn family team, and now it's just everywhere. And I can't speak to really going nationwide because I wasn't a part of that. Are you part of that, Felicia? You could talk about that.
I really can't after it started going nationwide. We were, like I say, we heard about it, and I'm trying to remember because it was about that time that Rural Johnson started the business unit that Dr. Safran approved. It was the only time something like that ever been done in the American Cancer Society. And he had a map. If people who were around a long time ago remember the United States map, and he had push pins in it where all the relays were. And there were a lot on the eastern seaboard. I remember that, and it seemed like there were a lot right in the very middle of the country. But we always asked Pat, how did the Luminaria service start? And she said, it started at a relay in Washington, but nobody knows exactly where or how. They know how it happened, but I guess they didn't know all the details about it. The fact that the lights went out for some reason, and somebody said, or they didn't have electricity, and somebody said, well, let's do luminarias, and that's how it happened, and it just caught on. And of course, now it's one of the most significant memorable, I guess, parts of the relay. And I guess about the same thing with the Survivor Walk. I don't think there's really any recording knowledge of where that actually started, but seemed like a good idea. And there you go.
You know, what I've learned is there isn't a whole lot of history on the event from the early years, and I think
Right.
they're questioned whether it was going to be around this long. And so,
Mhm.
oftentimes Pat would fill in the gaps by telling all these stories. And I remember she only lived a short distance from me, so I would go pop in her house all the time and check in, and she'd be on the phone at 10 o'clock at night. And I don't know if that was you or whoever, but she was always on the phone. And then it was this nationwide thing. I was like, nationwide? Oh my gosh. And I met so many amazing people from around the country just from this being nationwide and getting the opportunity to travel with Pat the last 5 years of her life. And then next thing I know, it's global. And that's been fun for me. When Felicia, I think we were at the same event in Atlanta, and I met some guy uh, over wine late at night, and he's from Scotland. And then he reached out later to me from Facebook, and it's like, this is just one giant family. And it's really, really warms my heart to see how this little event that started right here in Tacoma is
Yeah.
everywhere.
I know, that's just incredible. To go back to the first thought, I used to call your mom at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning before she left for work, and it would feel so weird calling somebody that early. But that's when we communicated most of the time. Yeah, I have a lot of Facebook friends, from Australia and Ireland and just all over, and it is really really amazing. There was one young man in Africa that Laura had put me in touch with, who had the same leukemia that I have, and he passed away. We've learned a lot, I think, through the years about each other and how relay is the same but different all over the world. I think it was in Portugal when they have it's kind of like in the center of town, and it's or where we have, we might be at a high school or something. It's just the whole thing in the center of the town, and people come in. It's just so cool. It's I love how they've done different things with it.
It is amazing to see. In my travels with Pat, I got to go to a lot of relays, and just a little relay around a track, and they're raising money for the same thing, all the way up to Gwinnett County, which is your relay, the world's largest relay, which was the most amazing event I've ever been to. I've been there twice, and to
Yeah,
see
it
the
is.
participation. I've seen a mobile home park in Arizona where they just walk around in their little driveways there, and I've seen them in malls and racetracks and downtowns, and it's just really, really heartwarming to see the level of participation and the creativity that this event brings to the table.
That's true. No matter how small or how large. Virginia Beach was until 9/11, they had a great relay on the military base there. After 9/11, they could no longer do it, but they would have grown to be as big as Gwinnett was had they not lost their site. So yeah, we stole a lot from each other, a lot of ideas and not money, but
I think Nona calls it lovingly lift.
there you go.
I got to speak at Relay for Life of Japan in November via Zoom, and their level of excitement to be talking to the United States, where this whole thing started, was
Mhm.
it was crazy. And we did it all with an interpreter, and it was really, really fun. It was
Oh, I
just
bet
like
that was.
every time I go to a relay, I just see the excitement and the family, and we're all there for the same cause. I just love it.
Yeah, we used to call it. We used to have signs. When you enter a town and they have the Kiwanis signs and Rotary and everything. We used to have a sign that said, "This is a Relay for Life community." I think is what it was, because we used to say it's about being a community that takes up the fight, and it is. It's where the communities come together and have a lot of solidarity. And
I think we have that banner in storage. It's probably a good time to bring it up.
it might be. I agree with you. I agree with you.
So some of the first conversations about dreams and visions, that's probably out of my league. Felicia, you want to speak to that?
One of the things we were talking about was Signature Weekend, and relay started getting really big and coming across the country. And Gordy became a member of the board of directors of the American Cancer Society. And the board of directors decided that it was going to be the signature event. And then we started talking about Signature Weekend. Now, Dr. John Safran was a huge supporter of Relay for Life. He was amazing, or still is, I'm sure. But in that role, he was so amazing. We wanted to have Relay the same weekend all over the country. And we would go all over, we'd promote it, and they'd say, but it was freezing cold here. And you say, yeah, but you can have it outside, and then we began to see all the reasons why you couldn't have it on the same weekend. We just thought it would really, make it more marketable and more popular. But it didn't happen, but it didn't need to happen. Look how it grew. It just grew amazingly. I think when the first year of the business unit, which was late 90s to maybe 1996, 97 or something like that, Relay raised $40 million, I think it was. The next year it was $60 million. And I think it went up to $20 million. It was incredible, the growth. And all of a sudden it was 400 and something million. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. And the people a lot of staff people, especially and the board of directors of the American Cancer Society would talk about shelf life. Is it going to be popular forever like this? And we'd say, as long as there's cancer, it's going to be popular. So I think people's lives have changed a lot since when we were doing that back then. But I think we go at a faster pace. Maybe we don't have quite the leisure time that we used to have. But when I look at Gwinnett, now you're familiar with Gwinnett. They had the drive-through, right? Last Friday night, I think it was. So they make it happen. And one year they had tornadoes and couldn't have the event. So the following spring they did, or I guess the fall they did something. And inside, and I thought there won't be anybody there. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe the people. It was like wall to wall. It was amazing. But the schools have always loved Relay for Life. The superintendent there, I think the third year they started seeing, they'd come to Relay and then they would see all the corporate sponsors we had there. And Mr. Wilbanks, Alvin Wilbanks, told his principals, who were CEOs of their schools, that they needed to be seen at Relay. And of course, the schools are the reason that Gwinnett has been so phenomenally successful, because half the money comes from the schools and they really get into it. They compete. Relay's about competing too.
Well, I've been to your Relay twice, and that's what I took home is the schools, preschool, kindergarten, PTA, elementary, and the high schools competing. It was really refreshing. I sat in on the team captains meeting for Gwinnett a couple of weeks ago, and I had to call Nona after. It's like, that was amazing. Her turnout and the plan for that drive-through, that was pretty amazing.
Well, I recruited her dad. A lot of people know her dad. And the first year we recruited him, he was with, I think it was it 3M? And I remember walking into the warehouse and talking to him, and Dwayne is amazing. He had the first online fundraiser at our first Relay in Gwinnett. Nobody else had one. He just thought this would be a good thing to do, because we didn't want to push everybody the first year. We were told not to. But he had a bowling thing going on. He was raising money for that. So he's an awesome guy.
He's a great guy. So some of the things that were developed early on, I would just hear through the grapevine or when I was at Pat's house. And so signature elements and the Celebrate, Remember, Fight Back, that wasn't part of the first plan. That wasn't, from what I understand, an evolution. When I would go to my mom's house, it was Relay all day, every day. And there were always things on the table. And here's the new logo. What do you think of the new logo? And I didn't know what the old logo looked like. And then the evolution of the Celebrate, Remember, Fight Back, which I think is a perfect.
That's right. It is. And that was, I'm thinking that was around 2001, 2002.
How about what's on Pat's homepage on Facebook? That Relay for Life is community owned, volunteer driven, and staff supported, or used to be staff supported.
Yes.
Now, that was early on, wasn't it?
I think it was. Yeah, I think so. That was we drill when we would do trainings. We would drill that into everybody. This is a volunteer event, a volunteer-led event, and you're supported by staff. But if staff tries to run it, it's not going to be successful.
And that's so important. And it's why I always preach, and I know a lot of people preach that we just need to relay your way. Tacoma is a 24-hour event, and will probably always be that way when we're non-virtual. But that little community in Arizona, they can't relay it for more than 4 hours with 110-degree heat. And in Alaska, it just whatever works. And if it's a racetrack, or we have an event out here in Gig Harbor across the water, they're doing a music festival. It's called Relay for Life, but it's nothing like any Relay for Life you've ever seen. And it doesn't really matter as long as we're all doing this for the right reason, and we are.
Well, and that's true. And I was part of the group that developed the I think whether there's 7 or 8 things that you had to do. You had to have an open ceremony, you had to have a luminaria ceremony, you had to have a survivor walk. You had to have a closing ceremony. They were just certain things you had to do. And then we had suggestions, to make your event. But that has kind of gone along the wayside. It was, I think at the time, it was the right thing to do. We were trying to make relays look alike, but be different, if you know what I mean. We wanted the structure to be the same, but have it to belong to each community. And I think most of them still do the survivor walk and the luminaria ceremony.
I think most of them take little pieces, but maybe the venue changes or whatever works for your community. And I like that. So what is it that makes Relay for Life special? I'm going to read something that Pat said. It's giving us a way to fight back. We can see and do. Average people can do this. Gordy Klatt said, one person really can make a difference. For me, what makes it special is I love that for us, the actual relay event is really a celebration, because a lot of the fundraising takes place in advance, and it's a gathering of our community and all these people that have put so much time and energy into this event. And I love to see the survivors and caregivers. And my favorite is luminaria. My mom and I would always put all of our luminaria in front of our tent site, and then we would take pictures of the individual luminaria, and then we would text those to whoever it was appropriate to. And that's still to this day is my favorite part of any event, your event or my event. I love that part of it. How about you?
That is special. And there's some it's touching pictures that have been made through the years, of the pouring out of love, that you could see in people's faces in front of those luminaria of their loved ones. And of course, now ACS does it too in Washington, D.C. during non-COVID times in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and most recent ones have been.
And I know that we're doing it virtually as well. We're doing virtual luminaria for our virtual event next week.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going back down memory lane, and I remember one of the things that I also enjoy is the family atmosphere. And I took my son is 23 this year, and this will be his 24th relay. So we were pregnant with Alex, and his older brother was 3, and they spent the night in the tent with us. And it's fun to see these little kids at our relays, and their parents are there and their grandparents are there, and it's such a great family event. And that's heartwarming for me to see that we're still doing this 35 plus years later.
Yeah. Well, my grandson was born in March, and we had the relay in May, and he was there. And then there's a picture of him the following year when it rained all night. And he and his mom and dad spent the night, and he has a little blue slicker raincoat walking around the puddles at Relay for Life. But my grandkids always loved relay, and they always came when they could.
Well, at our house, it wasn't an option. It was.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was relay. No question about it.
Birthday party for my husband one time at Relay, because his birthday always coincided with Relay, and we never got to celebrate. And
oh, that's funny. Well, it's amazing to see how this thing has grown from Dr. Klatt's vision. And how did he say that? Gordy was the vision, and Pat was the details, and it's just amazing to see that this
Called
is.
herself a detail person, and she was, and I don't think it could have happened without her. Gordy, Gordy was a surgeon, and he didn't have the time to do that. So yeah, she really, and then I think she did a good bit of the trainings too. And then when she went back to work, I guess, and had less time. That's when I started, and some of the staff, we started doing a lot of the trainings across the country. So there are a few countries I haven't put a toe. I mean, counties, states. I didn't mean countries. States where I haven't put my toe into and trained to relay. I've trained in pool halls. I'm not kidding. That's where we were. Pool halls that reeked of alcohol, bars, you name it. And so it's about the basics. Pat and I always preach the basics, especially your mom. You go back to the basics. That's what makes it great.
The first year I was the event lead for Relay for Life from Tacoma, Pat was in the hospital for about a month. And so it was the second relay she had ever missed. And she called me a number of times. And it was details. It was whatever it was like, are you kidding me? Just to make sure that I didn't forget this or that, or it's time to reverse the direction and go the other way on the track. It was really funny that she was still that chair quarterback, whatever you call that.
Right. Yeah. Well, for the people who are watching don't know this, Mark was absolutely an amazing son to his mother. We used to have a lot of meetings across the country, and they were important to Pat. It was important to her to be there, and it was important for the people who were attending for Pat to be there. And she was their queen, and Mark made sure that she got there. He took all her dialysis stuff and carried it, and the airplane from the house to the car to the airplane to the hotel, and was always there for her. And she wouldn't have been able to do it if it hadn't been for him. So he's the son of the century, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you. It was an honor, and forgive me here. Thank you, Felicia, for that. I met you via that, and all the people I met around the country that I'm friends with today and I'm connected with, and with Relay, I wouldn't have met. I've heard about most of them, you and Jeff and the rest of the Hall of Famers, but a lot of my closest friends I've made via traveling with Pat for Relay for Life. So it was a great learning experience, and I was honored to do it. So as of today, this is still the largest fundraiser in the world, 4 million plus people in 31 countries. So what's the challenge now?
That's a good question. Like I said earlier, people are busier now, I think. I think we have to understand the different generations and, what they like, how they like to. And I think we've done a good job of understanding that and seeing that people lead different lives now, and that Relay has to change some. We were back in the day, we wanted it just like it's, you do this, you do this, you do this. It's okay if you do that, but you do this and this and this. So I think we've gotten more relaxed with that, and I think that's a good thing. It's like you said, the event that doesn't look like a relay, but is. So just communities are changing a lot. I think we just have to keep being flexible, I guess is the word, and making sure that the main thing is that we're fighting cancer, that we're raising money for research and for education and all the things that are important to conquering cancer. And we just have to keep that in mind. We have to keep the goal in mind of why we're there. I mean, how many of us are watching this have not lost someone to cancer? Because like I said all those years ago, when they said there's a shelf life, as long as there's cancer, there will be Relay for Life.
I agree. And I don't even like to use this word, but pivot. This is a good time for all of us to look at our events and pivot. And I think a lot of people have done a really wonderful job. You guys sure did in Gwinnett of doing what we can to still have an event. And when we get to have a physical event, maybe we have to take a look at how we do these events to draw in more people. The next generation, you guys do a great job with the school districts out there, and that's a huge opportunity with every single relay, and getting the youth involved, because that's That's
Yeah.
our relay of tomorrow. And I think the potential is enormous. I want to use this COVID as a springboard to regroup and get more people involved in our committee, more people involved in our community, and more businesses involved in sponsoring. And let's make this thing huge again. And I'm excited about what that looks like. I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. Well, here's some history for you. I don't know if you know this or not, but when we first started, when I did it, when I was just learning about relay, we were told not to have children and kids in the event because unless they had a special reason to be there, they weren't going to be raising any money. And wow, was that ever wrong?
Yeah. We have two survivors. They were both 3 or 4-year-old cancer survivors, and they became the poster kids of our event off and on. And they're now in high school and thriving. And we lean on them to help bring in that youth portion of this.
I guess it was the second year we did the Gwinnett Relay. I had a captain's meeting, and this little girl was supposed to come and sing. And she had lost her leg. I think it was to osteogenic sarcoma. And she was late. And we figured she wasn't coming. Turns out she'd gotten sick on the way. But she insisted on coming. She'd been doing some performing before she had lost her leg and had cancer. This little girl walked in the door on crutches, this little red hat on her head, with one leg, got up in front of that group and sang "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow." We had people leaving the room because they couldn't handle it. And one of the team captains came up to me afterward and she said, "Now I know why we're doing this. Now I know why we're doing this, and that is why it is." One of my most precious possessions is a letter from Heather that someone had framed for me that she wrote and thanking me for letting her be part of the event. And she was our childhood cancer chair for 2 years before she lost her battle. So yeah, that's why we do it.
So looking forward, what's our responsibility, Felicia, for moving this event forward?
Well, for me, it's, understanding that it's the young people that need to be doing this, that they have the time, hopefully the energy, people who just, the caregivers, the people who know why they are there, understand why they're there, but also to be supportive and to listen, I think, to listen to new ideas. That's really,
Absolutely.
really important. And to not ever be closed-minded to any new thoughts and ideas.
I agree.
That's what I would say.
For me, I want to make sure, especially in my own community, that relay remains relevant. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle with all the other events, but
Yes.
especially being the birthplace of relay, I just want to make sure that we're out there in the forefront. And I want to continue to be the voice of volunteers. I want to stand up for our volunteers and make sure they understand that, let's do what we want to do. I mean, within reason. And
Mother speaks through you, Mark.
right.
She certainly does, and I know she's proud of the fact that you have, taken the reins and run with them, and not just for your event, but nationally, and that's so good. We're so happy with that.
I'm honored. So, Felicia, unless you have anything else, I want to thank you for joining me today and talking about relay.
It was fun. I always love to talk about relay.